We'll be asking the Boy Scouts to post the colors and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Let me get started. Welcome everybody to the Board of Trustees regular meeting, September 13th, 2023. If you wish to speak or comment on certain items on the agenda, you should have signed up to speak either prior to this meeting or on the sign-up sheets at the entrance. This will be your last opportunity to sign up. We will pick up the sign-up sheets and only those individuals who have signed up will be allowed to speak. The meeting is now called to order. The time is 7 p.m. Let me read as follows. This meeting is streamed on the village website. The public can also participate via Zoom. Instructions and overall public participation guidance for commenting is listed on the website and on page 5 of the meeting packet. The Village of Los Ranchos is providing the ability for the public to participate in hybrid meetings. As with any application, digital service, or software, the opportunity for failure can occur. Therefore, the village is not responsible for the inability to connect to the meeting, either by the Zoom meeting link or viewing via live stream. The meeting video and audio is recorded and will be available online after the meeting on the village website. I'm going to call the roll at this time. Mayor Pro Tem Trustee Pacheco.
Here.
I'm now going to announce that Alan Lewis, who has served this village as trustee since 2014, resigned his position at the end of August, stating family/personal reasons. All of us here at the village would like to thank Alan for his many years of selfless service to the community and for always considering what is best for the village when making decisions. We wish the best for Alan and his family, and we will always be grateful for his time and dedication. Trustee Benavides.
Here.
Trustee Radnovich.
Here.
At this time, I'm going to have the Boy Scouts post the colors, and then one of you will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please come forward and please stand. Post the colors. Will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please come forward to the very front, all four of you, so that you can tell us your name, what troop you are with, and anything you want to say about how you're doing in the Boy Scouts. I'll start with you, young man. Go ahead, sir.
I'm William. I am 15 years old. I'm a Star Scout almost life. And
Where do you go to school?
I go to Volcano Vista High School.
Okay, great. Next person.
I'm with Willow. I'm in Troop 9. I'm in first class.
Thank you. And you?
My name is Caleb Ruff. I'm second class. Rio is coming up after round. I'm 14 and I'm homeschooled.
Okay. Thank you very much, young man. Thank you for what you do. All right. At this time, I'm going to ask for approval of the agenda. I need a motion to approve or amend the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously. At this time, we go to item 5, which is general public comment. Participants wishing to speak on topics that do not appear on the agenda will be given 3 minutes. No action can occur on these items. If you have questions, please feel free to contact staff during business hours. Danielle, please proceed by calling up the individuals that signed up for general public comment.
Thank you, Mayor and trustees. The first individual who signed up is Ms. Camille Vados. If you would, please make your way to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Camille Vados, 427 El Paraíso Road, Los Ranchos. I'm a life resident, I think I am, of Los Ranchos. And good evening to our mayor, our board of trustees, and our staff members. I really wanted to speak briefly about our schools that are in the village. You know, I'm a retired teacher of the Albuquerque Public Schools. My mother, who is no longer with us, was a librarian, and I have a granddaughter who is her actually second year teaching, because before she finished her student teaching, they asked her to teach because we're so short of teachers. And if I say something that is not true, sometimes it's by word of mouth or talking to my neighbors or a friend, or are we losing Los Ranchos Elementary and Taft Middle School? Are we losing them?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, well, hopefully, you know, it's something that should be known, and if we are, you know, our children, and I very seldom hear of children being talked about during our meetings. It's about development, economic development. They're part of our development, and it starts with their education. And I took my role as a mother of 5 children, who I made sure that they had as good education as a single mom raising 5 kids as possible. They are all in professional positions, owning their own businesses, attorneys, computer specialists, electricians, film. So I don't attribute myself to where they are right now, even though I'm their mother. They made a decision. I think if we don't know where our schools are, we better darn well find out where they are. I used to be the registrar at Taft Middle School. I had 6 of my brother's children go through Taft, not necessarily Los Ranchos, but on to Valley. They went to Alvarado, and those are our options. So I think it's so darn important to know where we
Your
are.
time has expired. May I finish your thought?
And thank you.
Thank you, Camille.
Thank you, Ms. Vados. Next up is Mr. Joe Craig, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. Joe Craig, 505 Calle del Paraíso Northwest. I'd like to give you some information. We had a meeting over the weekend with Trustee Radnovich. He made a comment that I thought was sort of sad, that I may know more than our trustees. So our trustees need information. This is not a complaint against that. We need to keep our trustees informed. Got a letter yesterday, an email. The Attorney General has noted the complaint on the Open Meetings Act, which Danielle has. Mr. Beck, the attorney, is associated with the New Mexico Foundation for Open Government, which you've not heard about that. Please pay attention to it. I think this is a really important fact for all of us, not only as trustees, but us as individuals. Secondly, I've been asked to go back to the rail yards. It's something that I'm very proud of, to talk to them about the entrance to the rail yards. the same group that we're talking about with our Fourth and Osuna project is putting a project down there. It's one of the most historic projects, buildings that I helped save back 20 years ago. Trustee Radnovich worked with me on that. They're looking at putting housing at the entrance to our rail yards. And this is an important fact, I think, because there's 4 extremely historic sites there. So Monday, I'll be talking, hopefully, with the city of Albuquerque. Thank you for your time. And I'm sorry to hear that Trustee Lewis has left us. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Lastly, we have Mr. Christian Reedy. If you would, please approach the podium. State your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and trustees. My name is Christian Reedy, 8642 Rio Grande Boulevard. I was born in 1959. My parents rented from the Swanson Apartments at Edith and Osuna. They were both dirt roads. It was a 4-way stop back then. They bought in the Zia Gardens. I was raised there. I attended Ranchos, Taft, and Valley. My neighbor, Mike Ferris, was a nephew of Sadie. So on the way back from Taft, we'd drop by oftentimes and we'd get a tortilla and get thrown out the door. So it was, I'm very, very familiar with the village. My dad had his business for 22 years, my parents, at 6897 4th, which is going to be the future Hops location. So we serviced a lot of the local customers. I remember celebrity, Ed Pennybacker was a big celebrity back then. Tony Perkins, we sold tires and stuff to Warren Gray, the namesake of this building. So I've been around a long, long time. I've seen a lot of change. I've seen Sadie's go from 2nd and Osuna, tiny little place, to the bowling alley, now to their wonderful establishment. It's locals changing the local scene. Mr. Crouch ran the Tower Market. There was the Tower Bar. It was Sid's Bar. Then it became Sal's Discount Liquors. TGNY was a mainstay at Northdale forever. So I think I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of change that were mostly local people changing local things. Then we get the outside influences. All of a sudden, the west side grows. Everybody needs roads through the village. And it was a big fight. And then we lose Paseo. And that's the noisiest, most godforsaken Autobahn out there. I know, I live right next to it. And those types of outside forces, I understand them, it's inevitable, those things happen. We lost the big Montano battle. There's always concessions, Paseo will be 55 and then they raise it to 60. Montano will be 1 lane and then they make it 2 lanes each way. All those things, But now there's a lot of outside forces that seem to be affecting the village as well, and I don't like what I'm seeing at all. A lot of the influence isn't coming from locals changing the local climate. It's outsiders moving in and telling us how what we have here is so wonderful and golden, but yet we're doing it all wrong. So I think the main thing I wanted to point out my history here is I listened painfully to the last planning and zoning meeting, and they're totally confused, and everybody's confused about what's going on there on Chavez Road. I don't like it. Now we've got sticks in the air over here at 4th and Osuna. If you catch that light red, you sit there long enough, you can put an eye out looking at that thing, man. It just doesn't fit the village. And now I'm wondering, are we gonna have sticks up in the air and a bunch of development over there and no resolution? So I'm saying, stop that thing. It's a pilot project. The pilot needs to eject. We need to hit the brakes off the runway. And I'm here as a citizen to throw up a flare. We're lost out here. I don't know if this thing doesn't work, but it seems like everything we say falls on deaf ears. And so I wanted to give a history. I'm not a newcomer to this area. This outside change is not good. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian.
Thank you, Mr. Reedy. And with that, Mayor and trustees, that concludes public comment.
Okay, item 6 is presentations. We have a Citizens Advisory Committee presentation by Mr. Robert Chavez, the chairman. Please come forward, Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, trustees, and staff. Robert Chavez, should I just give my address? 324 Enchanted Valley Place, Northwest, on the east side. I want to say the first thing I want to say is that thank you guys for starting the Citizens Advisory Committee. I think it's going to play an important part currently and in the future of this village to help give more input. And especially, I want to say thank you to those people that have put in, almost a year of time every other week for an hour and a half. The Ann Simons of the world, George Radnovich, Gilbert Benavidez, Maida Rubin, God bless her, and congratulations on your new baby if you're listening. Ray Savetic, Sandy Geiser, and Shailene Smith. Now, the Citizens Advisory Committee finished the C1 late last year, and we got the recommended changes passed. So thank you for that. The next project that we were given, the Citizens Advisory Committee, I'm going to refer to it as CAC going forward, was the Conservation Pilot Ordinance 284. And our project started at the beginning of this year. The charge was to review the ordinance and propose a revised or a new ordinance in time before the moratorium ends December 20 of this year, 23. The scope of the project was defined as follows. Review and recommend to the existing pilot conservation ordinance or recommend a new ordinance that addresses the community's density concerns but allows for the conservation of land in future residential developments. Now, there are some key considerations, and I want to go through what we've gone through. And when we started this project, we knew the C1 was going to be relatively simple. I think we experienced that. We did, however, know that this ordinance was going to be heavy lifting. And I want to take you through what it is gone through and the complexities involved in this project to get it done right. And it's not easy by any means. Everybody has their opinions, and there is a lot of opinions, as you guys are well aware, in this village. Okay, the CAC overwhelmingly first determined that the Pilot Conservation Ordinance 284 can't be used for the second and third pilot projects, and I think we've all agreed to that. It's not right. So that's why the CAC is taking up this ordinance now. One of the key items that we had to deal with is to define what is open space. And open space, we thought, should be labeled conservation area. The conservation area usage should be flexible, so the developer can be creative in their designs. So not limiting the developer by ordinancing them. This would allow the village character to be better maintained in the residential developments. In addition, the new ordinance needs to have specifics that require the conservation area to be maintained by the residents in that development. And there has to be some strict guidelines so we don't get El Prado on Rio Grande, where the land is gone fallow and a mess. The next item that we had as a consideration, determine if the ordinance should be a pilot or a stand-alone ordinance or a standard one. After long discussions over a couple of meetings, the committee concluded that the ordinance should stand on its own. Should stand on its own. Pilot suggests a possible reversal if it does not work. And that cannot happen after a residential development has been built under the ordinance. You can't tear it down. So when we walk in with a new ordinance and we make the recommendations, we've got to do the best we can to make it right as we can. Okay, the next item. Determine if the new conservation ordinance could meet the original goals of the Pilot Conservation Ordinance 284. Or are there other factors that should be considered? One of the first things the 284 had in mind as a goal was conservation of open space and special features of the property like acequias or trees. The group thought yes, this was determined to be a primary goal on the new ordinance or a revised ordinance that we would recommend. And this goal was overwhelmingly confirmed in the public meeting. Okay? And we had an open meeting, and I guess for all of you that have attended, that was a major factor for all of the folks that attended that, developers as well as residents. Oh, Sarah Cobb and Drew Seavey, former member. Excuse me. Thank you very much, Ann. Okay, those were two other members. Okay. The next goal was we added, and it was another primary goal. The committee did this for the new ordinance, so it was specifically stated that the new ordinance was to maintain the character of the village as continued residential development occurs. We wanted to ensure that we get this character maintained in whatever fashion we can in this ordinance. Second goal of the ordinance was allow for more affordable housing to occur because of the ordinance. Oh my God. The committee concluded that this could be obtained, the goal, but it is relative to affordable for Village of Los Ranchos. And I don't know, you guys all live here and you know how expensive it is. So let me run through a scenario that we ran through. If you have a 9-acre development, okay? And the developer pays, or the individual owns, and it's $300,000 an acre. And if you require 30% conservation, that equals to about 2.7 acres. The cost for that developer to hand over 30% is $810,000. $810,000. Pocket change to a few of you. Pretty big money for a lot of us. So let's say the developer gets 2-lot bonus for a total of 11 lots, okay? The cost per lot now is $374,000 that is going to be borne by the lots that are going to be developed. And it started at $300,000. So now you build a home of 3,200 square feet at $300 per square foot. That will give you a house that's worth $1,334,000. So there's the issues that we have to deal with. We live in a very high rent district, and it's high rent because the character that we've maintained for 58 years. People want to be here. So what we concluded, Los Ranchos is a high demand area, and the developments of this nature will be marketable. But affordable is just relative. But one thing that we thought, and one way to get more Los Ranchos affordable housing is to allow the conservation ordinance to have mixed size lots. So smaller dwellings could be built in the development along with the bigger ones. So affordable might be 900,000. Okay? So those are the hard numbers we have to live with. Okay, the next consideration. Determine if the new ordinance should be constrained to the Guadalupe character zone. And for Gordine and Nancy's sake, I said yes. Don't give it to us anywhere else. Just joking. The committee had extensive data sets and maps created by the Middle Rio Grande, what was it, COG and MEDA. And what we did is we divided the village, the entire village, into parcel locations, number of parcels by size, by zoning, and associated with, in each zone, type of zone, those numbers. In addition, we did that by character area. So we had a composite view of this village, probably that no one ever has had in the past, but now we'll have it in the future, right? And what was concluded was that the new conservation ordinance shouldn't be should be allowed in any of the character zones. By enabling this ordinance, if done properly, we will maintain and give everybody the opportunity to experience and maintain the character of this village in their neighborhoods. So that was an important factor, and we are so proud, I think, of that decision. Can the ordinance be applied with the same factors across all zoning types, or should it be designed unique by zone? The committee reviewed potential scenarios of bonuses and percentage of the conservation land, and has really concluded that the ordinance would be best if it addressed the bonus uniquely by zone. So the numbers are making sense to address it for A1 and A2 and A3, maybe differently than the R2 and R3 zones. The complexity, as you can see, starts layering. It's getting very complex. Okay, is there a need to balance the residents' density concerns with the developer's financial viability of utilizing the conservation ordinance? The committee interviewed 3 developers that have done major projects in the village to get their perspective on conservation. And I'm talking some good ones, right? In addition, an open meeting was held with the residents and developers sitting around the same table. Thank you, Ann. To get their input and give feedback to both sides of the conservation concept. The committee's opinion of the new conservation ordinance was that it had to be reasonable, a reasonable balance between residents' wants and the developers' economic realities. It's got to be reasonable for both sides. Could the ordinance be made legally mandatory by setting small percentage of required conservation area? And then incentivize dwelling unit bonuses based on additional conservation land a developer allocates. This item is currently being worked on. And the thought is, if you can do a little bit of conservation mandated on any development, then it would allow for this focus of conservation to permeate through the village, throughout the village in the development, but not make it, onerous to the developer. Because if you don't, the next thing is, if it's not mandatory, how can we make the bonus attractive enough for a developer without compromising the residents' density concerns? So you have 2 forces at play, both at opposite ends, and trying to balance those 2 forces in the middle has been quite the issue, and somewhat perplexing at times, with some heavy conversations. That item, the last item I just mentioned, is also being worked on. So as you can see, we've gone through a whole bunch of steps over this last almost a year. And the one last thing that we had is, could or should we be looking at standard subdivision processes in order to integrate more visual open space into those subdivision designs and perspectives? So there was some good points brought up by Mr. Radnovich, is that if we looked at some of our zoning, our current ordinances, we could probably help add more of the character forces into the developments that are being done under the current ordinances. We determined that this was important but should be addressed in future zoning review projects. So that was all good news. I have to give you some bad news. As you can see, we've had a very complex task to complete, and the committee wanted to ensure they recommended a well-thought-out new ordinance. Unfortunately, our project had a major milestone that had to be met to make the December deadline of the BOT approval of the new ordinance. That milestone was to have the ordinance draft completed by the first part of September and presented to one more open meeting of residents and developers to get the comments, have enough time to massage that recommendation, and then submit it to P&Z. The process, as you all hopefully are well aware, is 3 months. So we had to get it to P&Z by October. Then we had, P&Z would then approve it or make changes and make recommendations and send it to the Board of Trustees, which then would review it and then have to vote on getting it, what is it called? Advertised. The next month, the third month, then they would review it and then approve it or deny it. So that's a 3-month project. We missed it. Darn it. So now we must ask you, Mayor and trustees, to consider one of 2 options. The first is to repeal the current ordinance prior to the December moratorium expiration. And this, I believe personally, and this isn't the committee's belief, that this is the best option. This is because it would not impose a hard deadline to produce the best conservation ordinance and the possible, and due to possible staffing issues that we will mention in a little bit, I think we would be best to do that. That will give everybody some time to make sure it's done right. And in addition to that, we see this new ordinance not being anything like the existing pilot conservation 284 ordinance. Nothing like it. There's going to be new procedures in place to process the ordinance, and it's not going to be pilot, etc. The second option, there's always options, right, is to simply extend the moratorium, and we would suggest the extension to June 30th. And this is because we have some staffing issues. Maida's on maternity leave. Sandy Geyser has stepped in, but it would sure be nice to have the person who's going to be directly responsible for executing the ordinances have a bigger say in what it finally comes out to be. Okay? And then there's other staffing issues that I'm sure you guys are all aware of. So the committee has pledged to wrap their portion up by year end. We feel comfortable with that, and I think we got a commitment from the committee that we think we can get our portion of it done by December. And we feel real confident in that. And we believe we only have the last 2 steps to finalize. So we're very close to a solution, I think. So I can stand for some questions if there's any questions.
So Robert, it sounds like your committee is pretty solid in the thinking process that you've come up with. And so from my perspective, I think over the next at least couple of months, we can take a hard look at your options, at the options that you've presented,
Yes.
and come up with an answer. It's obvious to me that this is very, very complicated. It took you a whole year just to get to where you are right now.
It is.
Okay. Do any of the other trustees have a comment or question? I'll start with you, Jordan.
Not really, Mayor. I think Robert did a good job of explaining it. It is a very complicated process and ordinance, and trying to figure out what suits us as a village and also suits the development community at some level is I think, really important, and we all believe that. Yeah. I don't think any of us think that the development should stop. It should just be different.
I agree. Trustee Benavides.
Robert Chavez outlined 2 options for us to repeal the pilot project ordinance or or extend the moratoriums. I think those are the two things that we need to consider very seriously.
I agree with you.
And I suggested to Robert that he give a presentation because I think the public needs to understand it all starts with the ordinances. And this is us vetting what we're doing to the public because as you all know, once an ordinance is in place and somebody comes before us and they follow the ordinances and things start getting developed, it's hard to turn anything around. So please pay attention to what we're doing. Think about it very carefully. If you see loopholes, let us know. Yeah, anyway, pay attention. Thank you.
Trustee Pacheco.
I just want to say thank you for bringing together the developers and the community. I think that right there is so important, so that everybody understands kind of the process, just like you ran through. I mean, a developer can't develop something that doesn't make sense to a developer. And with the cost of living here in the village of Los Ranchos, we have to look at all those things. I mean, it's not as easy as saying, donate a third of your property and do some affordable housing. And again, describing what affordable is in the village of Los Ranchos is very different than describing affordability in another community. And that's all because of the cost of the property here. So I appreciate that you brought together, I don't know whose idea it was to bring together the developers as well as the residents so that everybody could understand the process. And I think that has always been the issue is, we all looked at it from different perspectives and didn't look at it as a whole. And I think this kind of brings it all together. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, Robert. Thank you very much. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we now move to approval of the minutes. August 9th and 17th, 2023, the regular and reconvened meeting. I understand there may be some changes or suggested changes, but before we get to that, I need a motion to approve the minutes.
Can we make a motion to amend?
Well, of course.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to amend the minutes.
Okay, can you tell us what that amendment would be, and then I'll ask for the second.
Yes, so let me go to that page. I think it was page 30.
The minutes end on page 21, as near as I can tell.
Page 6, yep, you're right.
What page?
Page 6.
6.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got ahead of myself.
Well, page 6 is the presentation.
Well, let me just tell you what I think needs to be amended. So this is in regards to the, I can find it now, sorry. I didn't copy the page number correctly. Okay, page 13, yes. And at the bottom of the page, it's about the ranking of the capital improvement projects, infrastructure capital improvement projects.
Okay.
There was a lot of discussion about this ranking, and I'd like to include some of that discussion, in particular, Maria Rinaldi's comments about the importance of ranking 4th Street as #1 in priority. I think that's important to get on the record.
Okay. I need a second.
I'll second. I can second if I wasn't there, right?
Absolutely, you can second. You're a trustee. Okay, I'm going to go trustee by trustee if there's any questions, because there was an amendment. I'm going to start with Trustee Pacheco. Do you have any questions or issues on the amendment?
I have none.
Trustee Benavides, you've already said it, so now Trustee Radnovich, do you have any comments or questions on the amendment?
I just had a couple of small ones, Mayor. One is just purely an edit on on page 10, under David Montoya,
Okay,
it says, "We are your brain trust." I think he meant, or I think the verbiage was, "You are our brain trust," but I'm not
we,
sure.
not we. Well, I think he meant, if he said "we," I assume the word "we" is in the audio, correct?
Mayor and
Yeah.
trustees, that is what Mr. Montoya did say.
It
I
is.
will go back and verify, but I am certain that's what he said.
If he said we can't change that.
I get
That's
that.
what he said.
Just my memory. I didn't
Okay.
go back and look. And then, on the sheet, excuse me, on the page 21 of the minutes,
Yes,
it says, the reason, well, let me just state, it says I wanted to bring, this is something I said, I wanted to bring up Hartnett Park again. The reason that I brought that up was specifically that we should perform an archaeological or cultural survey in order to be able to move forward. And that didn't make it into the minutes at all. So I'd like that added in.
can you give us verbiage right now?
I can.
Good, let's do it.
At the end of the sentence, actually, let's see. Bear with me. I wanted to bring up again Hartnett Park and the barn. Our goals for the play, because I believe we should have an archaeological and cultural study done of this entire site before we move forward with any improvements.
Okay, is that your amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so trustee Benavides, you made the motion, do you accept that amendment on page 21?
I do.
Okay, trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnevich.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously with the amendments that we have made. Now let's move to departmental reports. The departmental reports are included in the packet and reflect all the activities as listed. Ms. Rinaldi would like to expand on her report, so I'm gonna let her speak next. Ms. Rinaldi.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees. Highlights of the report is pretty detailed, what you have in your packet, but I would like to talk about 2 open houses that will be held next week, the 19th and the 20th, specific to property owners, for information on how the configuration of the next phases of 4th Street project affect their properties directly. So we will be here in Village Hall with plan sets and all the documents on the 19th and the 20th. On the 19th from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and on the 20th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. With adequate time to be able to discuss at length with individual property owners exactly what the impacts of the proposed design may or may not have on their properties, and to solicit information from them as to how this design either positively or negatively impacts their property. So we're looking forward to that, and we've had a lot of property owners call in to tell us that they will be here, and some of them actually setting appointment times. So that's the biggest thing happening on 4th Street right now. The utility phase continues. Every utility provider has now received the 60% plan set, and they have been authorized and requested to incur all preliminary engineering costs for the purpose of conducting their own field reviews, studies, investigations for adjustments and relocations, of which they are to get to us by December. So we're well into the utility phase, and that's where we stand on that. We continue to coordinate with Bernalillo County and Wilson Engineering on logical termination of their bike lane into our project area. We anticipate another meeting with them late in this month. We've also begun the right-of-way phase. We obligated the COVID relief funds, the $1 million that we were awarded for right-of-way acquisition for storm facilities and potentially roundabout encroachments. And we have submitted and received back right of entry from the property owners at the properties at El Pueblo and 4th Street. They have returned them to us. We will begin the geotesting and site assessments for compatibility with the proposed project design. And we have also finally made contact with the second property owner south in the area of Roll and 4th Street for the other drainage and multi-use area on that phase of the 4th Street project. So we are in utility phase, we are in right-of-way phase, and we had a very good meeting with the Cabinet Secretary of the New Mexico Department of Transportation. We've had discussions at length with you. You are aware that one of our funding sources, $1.5 million in the next phase of 4th Street, prohibits us from matching federal funds with this particular fund source. We had a very successful meeting with the Cabinet Secretary on Friday, and we proposed to him 3 potential scenarios that would allow us to move forward and avoid that conflict so that we can fully fund the next phase. And one of the proposed scenarios was accepted by him. You will see this in further detail as he works it out in his department. It will require amendments to our grant agreements, and it may require a reversion of funds and replacement with a whole new fund source. So that was very, very satisfying, and it solves a very big project on the funding of the next phase. So I'm very pleased to report that to you. It was not in the report. We managed to get that scheduled and conducted in very short notice. The other thing we discussed with the Cabinet Secretary is a lot of the federal funding sources, the very big pots of money under the stimulus funds at the federal level, require a cost-benefit analysis, which is quite the undertaking. We have been soliciting from potential consultants to prepare one for the village. We discussed this with this Cabinet Secretary because they're having the same issue. The state of New Mexico also competes for these funds at a federal level, and there is very little language on what a cost-benefits analysis for this funding is. So we've been told to hold off on that. The Department of Transportation has requested clarification on what specifically that should look like before we undertake that and incur expense, so that we are performing exactly what is needed. So we expect to have some clarification come down from the Federal Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration, hopefully in the very near future. We don't have any applications pending to submit for that funds, but those funds become available through notice of funding, NOFAs, on a somewhat regular basis that we're always tracking. So we want to be prepared when the next pot of money comes down. And let's see, moving on to the Agri-Nature Center improvements. Just today, I submitted an application for a pot of money that was authorized in this legislative session. $8 million was authorized in House Bill 2 to allow local jurisdictions to seek cost overrun funding on legislative appropriation funded projects due to cost increases. I submitted the roadway improvements project for the Agri-Nature Center based on the fact that we expended legislative appropriations to do the engineering portion of the project, and we used the balance of that legislative appropriation plus a 2020 appropriation to complete the funding for construction. We had an engineer's estimate of approximately $447,000. The one qualified bid came in at $889,000. In an effort to continue forward with the project and to continue to spend our legislative appropriations and keep ourselves in good standing with the legislature so they keep funding us, we negotiated with that bidder And we reduced the scope and we came up with a project. The alignment of the roadway, the grading for the alignment, a concrete entrance pad, security gate, and electrification of said gate. If you are out there today in the rain, it is a mud bath. It is an unpaved roadway that is holding water because there is no directional curb or any other of the other engineering aspects of the roadway as planned. So I submitted that project and said, we phased it, but the full cost of this project, in order to get a full project, is this amount. This is a cost overrun. It was eligible, and it was submitted today, so they intend to turn this money around really quick because this is Senate Bill 2, House Bill 2 money that only has 1 year of life. So they want to fund projects. We're designed, we're ready. We have a contractor still on the ground there that we could change order this amount into the project because it's already been through procurement. I think we have a really good shot. Hopefully in the next report, I'll be able to report success or failure on that effort. That's not in your report either. I think I said I will be submitting, that's done. Outdoor classroom is moving along. We were hoping that it would be done this week. There were some issues with human issues of illness on the crews of the contractor, so they weren't able to finish the work this week. Okay. Roadway improvements project. You know that we have been awarded a certain amount of money with the match to complete paving and striping project, crack seal, striping projects in the amount of about $600,000. We have been released. We have submitted our revised cost estimates to the Department of Transportation, and we have been released to move forward with the project. So end of November, early December, I will begin the environmental and cultural review certifications on all of those streets. And the intent is to be awarding that project in the spring or as early as February. Chavez Road Multi-Use Trail, we are still in the survey portion of this. The topo survey is complete and the right-of-way investigation research is still underway. The subsurface utility engineering and environmental work are now underway since this report was written. And the first public hearing, we're still saying summer. I'm still hopeful that it'll happen, well, sometime this month, that we will announce a public hearing, that we have enough information to bring to the public to start those discussions. And a side note on the raised crosswalks, I will be issuing a notice of award, notice to proceed to CGI contractor to begin the construction of the crosswalks on Chavez Road. To begin, I believe the starting date will be September 25th. Comprehensive transportation analysis. The community survey continues to be active, and Parametrics had a presence at the farmers market on Labor Day weekend. So this is very, very visible solicitation of public input. They have finished the traffic data collection, including speed data and count data at El Pueblo and 2nd Street intersection. They're currently running the program that determines the level of service at these locations. And we've met with potential area developers on 2 potential case study locations within the village to basically mock up potential developments within the current ordinances and can be adjusted if ordinances change, to run potential scenarios to see what traffic impacts would be at full development in these 2 large project areas. We have enough to bring to the Board of Trustees and the public, and I would like your approval to ask our clerk to have this on the agenda as a presentation and public hearing by Parametrics on the October agenda, if you would please do so. And we're very pleased to be able to bring a lot of the a lot of the hard data from the traffic counts, multiple sources, not just the data they're running, but our own speed boards in the village. But then the most important thing about these community surveys is it gives us an idea of so there's a level of service, what the data says a configuration of this intersection should be able to handle for signalization, for lane width, for speed and such. And then there's the community input that says, our perceived level of service is this. This is what we would like to see in these intersections and on those roadways. And somewhere in between is where the data and the pleasure of the community come together. So I'm really pleased that we're managing to do both the hard data and the perception and how the community feels about these issues. So look forward to that public meeting. And I'm sorry, this is going on a little bit longer than I anticipated. So we'd like to have that on the agenda. In my other, I added a bullet point and attached my scope of work for my professional services for discussion in the BOT. I stand before you every month, the public, the Board of Trustees, and I present in great detail what it is that I do for the Village of Los Ranchos. I am not an employee. I am a professional services consultant. I manage your capital projects from planning to funding to implementation to closeout and audit. That is basically what my scope of work is. My scope of work has words such as coordinate, participate, make recommendations, assist, research, recommend. Big one, monitor adherence. Keep the village out of trouble. Keep us clear audits. Keep us in compliance with all requirements of our own ordinances, state and federal funding source obligations, reporting obligations. I believe that I do that well. And I make no decisions is my point. I'm not involved in any other operations of the village. I am exclusive to capital projects. I make recommendations to the mayor, to the administrator, and I bring all decisions to the Board of Trustees. And all of my recommendations are based on my professional opinion. Why do I feel necessary to say this to you? I was very dismayed to have sent to me, to my personal email, a clip from a candidate forum where my name was specifically used and misrepresented my role with the village. I was dismayed to hear that. I believe that I have conducted myself with the utmost professionalism. I expect that in return, and I was really bothered by that. And I want the Board of Trustees to have my scope of work, and I want the public to have my scope of work so that there is no misrepresentation of what I do for the village. I love this job. It's fun, it's challenging, and it's beneficial to a community that I care about. I'm born and raised in the town of Bernalillo, in the valley. It's very similar. I was bothered by that. Thank you for indulging me. And for questions.
Okay, let's do this. Let's go trustee by trustee if anybody has questions for Ms. Rinaldi. Let's start with Trustee Pacheco.
Thank you, Mayor. Maria, thank you for that. I've known you for over 20 years at least, and I have always found you to be extremely professional. And the life I knew you before this was nothing to do with government, but you always carried yourself very professionally. You always made the right decisions. So I just wanted to say that you do so much for our village, things that I don't think a lot of us even see. You keep your eyes open for opportunities that come up that will benefit the village. And again, many of these that none of us would ever know even existed. So I just wanted to say thank you for all you do. You're a critical piece to the puzzle of what we all do here, and you're critical to the village's future. So I just wanted to throw that out there and say thank you for all you do. Now to get back to the your report, I did just have a couple of questions. And let me get back to the front here. So you talked a lot about cost overruns, and we're seeing a lot of change orders because of costs. We're having to, kind of bring things down from where we would like them to be because of costs. I'm just kind of curious. So we have the next phase of the 4th Street project in the works. How often do we relook at what the costs are going to be to redo? I mean, we're like at 28 million now. How often do we kind of look at that to see if it's going to change and how much?
Mayor Trustee Pacheco, that's an excellent question. We just completed 60% design, and we've seen a $3 million increase in the cost estimate for phase 1. Thus, the rush to get this, not a rush as in just get anything done, but an urgency to complete the design and get it contracted to hold a price. Because, I mean, we started with a $6 million project and we are now at about 13 million. So, and it's just, I can't even describe the cost overruns that projects I'm familiar with are coming in. And this is at 60% design. We still want to build a significant amount of amenity in landscaping and design, lighting, intersection improvements, elements of beautiful elements into the project that will continue to add cost. So the other urgency was to unblock us from that issue of not being able to use our federal money in the first phase. When we sign those agreements, that will free up that $7 million that we have sitting out there in the Transportation Improvement Plan. It is a matter of putting all the pieces together and getting it done in a responsible, efficient manner that gets us to a place where we can have a realistic understanding of what it is we're facing, which we may not even have until we actually bid it. I mean, we were pretty sure that the cost of the roadway at Agri-Nature Center was going to be less than $500,000. And the bids came in at almost 900. So, I mean, that's the environment that we're dealing with at the moment.
Do you feel that projects like this will succeed? And I guess from the legislature's standpoint.
What's encouraging is that we're seeing funding sources like this cost overrun money that's available. The legislature and other funding, even transportation project funds programmed cost overruns into as part of their formula for funding. We are seeing that every funding source is doing a set aside to cover cost overrun on projects. So that's encouraging to hold projects whole. Nobody anywhere in the village, in the state, in the country wants to just see infrastructure projects sit. One, because a tremendous amount of time and effort and cost has gone into making these projects, putting them to the status that they're at in funding. People want to see them funded and off the boards so that we can move along and not continue to try to cobble together every funding cycle. You can't even catch up with the exponential cost increase when funding is happening that way. That's been recognized at all levels. And we are seeing these funding sources for cost overruns becoming a serious thing. So that's encouraging. I mean, other than that, it's just...
Keep our fingers crossed and go.
Yes, and continue to identify additional sources of funding. Specific to one of the, I mean, it depends on, at 100% design, when we know what all of the elements of design are, and some of them might specifically fit a particular grant for beautification, for water conservation, for that we could fund an entire chunk of. But until we get to that final design, those kinds of things are kind of still out there.
Appreciate the explanation. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Okay, trustee Benavides.
I'm a huge fan, by the way. You know, it amazes me that you're able to, your knowledge of how our state government works and the federal government works and your ability to pull together these different sources of funding to get this all done requires a lot of knowledge that I don't have, but I'm learning from you. So I thank you for that. And you have the momentum, and you know the importance of getting a project done. So thank you. So I have some easier questions for you. Let's see, the raised walkways on Chavez, I assume they're gonna double as like speed humps as well, right?
Precisely. Mayor, Trustee
Yeah.
Benavides, they are what are called speed tables with crosswalk.
Okay,
So they are a speed hump.
yeah.
So they act as traffic calming and they act as raised visibility for pedestrian crossing.
And this will be an interim solution for calming, traffic calming until we do a Chavez project, right?
Mayor Trustee Benavides, the intent is that it is not just an interim, but may be incorporated into the overall,
Okay,
at least at the locations identified, which are at, there is an existing crosswalk. It's faded paint, but there is a crosswalk just north of the Caballero entrances, the two subdivisions. And there will be, that's one of the locations. And the second location is just west of Fred, what is the name of the road? Neighbor Road. And it is basically it's just west of Neighbor. So those two locations may or may not be identified as ideal crossings in the final Chavez Road plan, but we think they probably will be. They're the ones that make sense based on patterns of travel that have been observed on Chavez Road.
so when might we see those go in?
I'm issuing the notice to proceed, notice of award, notice to proceed tomorrow to begin construction on the 25th of September.
Oh, very soon.
Yes.
Very good. Let's see. So roadway,
Oh, Trustee, I have to give kudos to Keen Heinzelman on that. We were stuck with price agreements at the state and county level, and Keen took it upon himself to contact some contractors that he knew from other projects, and we were able to get 3 bids. So that's what moved that project forward.
yeah, I suspect that people that live along Chavez are going to be very happy to see that. Roadway improvement projects. This is FY '23 to '24. See, we're in FY '24. That's correct, right? So some of those things have started. You know, the repaving and that sort of thing. But when will we see more of that happening?
Mayor, Trustee Benavides, we completed the last project, closed it out, audited all our funds. This is the brand-new award. You had the grant agreement before you at the last Board of Trustee meeting, August? Yes. It was signed in August, and approved by you guys. So this project now, I've submitted everything that was required after the execution of the grant agreement, and our money has been released. We have a purchase order from the state to begin the project. Now I have to do environmental and cultural reviews on all of these streets through the state of New Mexico and NMDOT. And once we have those certifications, we can issue a notice of award, notice to proceed to the 2 contractors who have already bid the project.
So what would you estimate? I mean, would we do this kind of work in the wintertime as well?
No.
Okay.
Mayor, Trustee Benavides, the intent is that I'll probably take most of December, January into February to complete the certification process and clear the roads. Hopefully, we don't encounter any environmental or cultural concerns. And I hope to bid the project, I hope to award the project in April.
Very good. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, trustee Radnovich.
Maria, I just had a couple of questions. Can you explain what Synchro is?
It is that's a question I asked Parametrics. It is the program that they use to evaluate the data, the speed data, the traffic counts, the radii of the intersection, speed limit, all contributing factors to come up with a level of service on that roadway intersection or whatever the facility is. It's a program.
Is it just for vehicular traffic, or is it also for everything from equestrian to pedestrian to bicycle?
It is all movements on the facility. And they'll talk about this specifically in their presentation.
Okay, I'll look for it. Well, I can't be there, but I'd like to be. Thank you for the work on the Agri-Nature Center road. I hope that
We'll see.
I hope that actually happens. Yeah. Mayor, trustees, is this also for any questions we have on
Not yet.
hands? Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. I think that's all I had for you, Maria. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Maria, I will echo what the trustees have said about your performance, and you are an incredibly valuable person to the village of Los Ranchos. Many of the projects that you're working on are safety. They're for safety of village residents, safety of roads, et cetera, et cetera. They're also quality of life. Agri-Nature is a perfect example, so I commend you for what you're doing. Thank you very much. All right. So if the governing body has questions on any of the remaining departmental reports, we will have each trustee ask all their questions before we move on to the next trustee. Trustee Pacheco.
Thank you, Mayor. I think my first questions are for Joshua.
And he happens to be here. Thank you, Josh, for coming.
First, I want to say, I don't know how you do it all and show up for a meeting at night, just looking at everything that you are doing. And it looks like it's like almost every day you have something going. And I just want to thank you for all you're doing. All the programming I think is exceptional. I do have some questions with regard to some of the events that you held. And this one is in particular to the Master Gardeners that is held on every Wednesday. Can you just talk a little bit about what that entails during that event?
Sure. Mayor, trustees, Trustee Pacheco. So every Wednesday morning throughout the growing season, beginning in March and going through the end of October, we have anywhere from 15 to 20, 25 Master Gardeners who are registered with NMSU Extension Master Gardeners Program, and they are required to get a certain number of hours to remain active and actively certified as a Master Gardener, or they're going through the course to certify as a Master Gardener. And we have a wonderful village resident volunteer, Bill Shen, who heads up that program. And he teaches this Master Gardening program in the raised bed area of the Agri-Nature Center. And different individuals take on a different raised bed, and he coaches them through the whole season in planting their garden and growing it, and also managing the vineyard, pruning, harvesting grapes. This morning, we made wine with the last harvest of grapes with the Master Gardener program. So that's all part of their training that they go through. And then the regular community garden area, when they are done with their projects on their raised beds, some of them also come over to the community garden and participate in working that area as well.
Thank you for that explanation. I just didn't even realize that we were able to certify Master Gardeners as part of the programming. So thank you for that. With regard to the Los Poblanos Fall Lecture Series on August 16th, you said there was a panel of farmers that spoke about the community building and farmers working together in the area. What was the outcome?
Thank you, Mayor, Trustee Pacheco. This was head up by Los Poblanos, Wes Brittenham, who's the head horticulturalist there. And he brought together a panel to speak. It's as part of their lecture series. So we had members of the community as well as some of their clients who were there come and ask questions. And there was Andrea Harrell, who's a sheep farmer in the village, as well as myself, the head farmer for Rio Grande, or the executive director for Rio Grande Community Farm, as well as Wes Brittenham. And I made
So it's a collaborative
So it was
effort.
a collaborative thing. And we talked about all the events and projects and things that we were able to do together because we work together as farmers in the village in this area. And so people were asking questions, even people from other areas around the country who were staying there, about how we were able to, in this area, work together as farmers to make these different projects and events happen.
Excellent, thank you. Let's see, the Matanza, you said that you met with the Matanza group, I'm assuming, or those that headed up. Did we come up with some great ideas that we're going to implement into our next Matanza?
Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, yes, I've spoken several times over the phone with the Hispano Chamber of Commerce president and from Valencia County, and they're the ones that put on the Matanza there. We have another meeting with them next week to talk about the more. We kind of went over the bases of permitting and those kind of things, and the model that they use. And I think we have some great ideas for moving forward for this year's Matanza.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Great. And then last question, this is in regard to residents contacting you with regard to maybe properties that they live on that they would like to do something with. I'm just kind of curious, how many people on average are we able to help? First, I guess, how many people on average contact you? And does it result in something in the end? Are you able to connect them with people? What does that look like?
Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, thank you. Yeah, I get calls at least once or twice a week from different village residents who have questions regarding their land, or lately it's a lot with fruit trees since it's that time of year and everybody has questions with, do I have somebody who can help them with harvesting? Do I have a place for dead apples that are on the ground? People who have livestock. So it's a lot of connecting people with livestock with people who have apples on the ground, or Food is Free Albuquerque who can come and help them harvest. So connecting different people, or people who land and want to put something on it, I can connect them with a contract farmer in the village who's able to do that work. So I consult with them, give them ideas on what they can do with their acre, half acre, whatever it is, and then try to connect them with the people who can help them implement that project.
Fantastic. That's all I had, Joshua. Mayor, that's all I have, but I did just want to comment on all departments, on the staff and how everybody works so hard for the village, and just say that we appreciate you. Thank you.
Very much. Trustee Benavides, your turn.
I think I just have one question for Ann Simon. Page 25 of your report, you're talking about tree planting. That's pretty interesting. What kind of trees are you going to plant?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Trustee Benavides. Thanks for the question. We are going to be hosting a tree planting volunteer community planting day. Actually, it's a 2-day event. We're going to start on Friday the 6th and go Saturday the 7th. We're going to plant 150 trees. We're going to plant Afghan pines along the berm next to Paseo. And another variety, and I'm embarrassed to say I don't recall, but it is a drought tolerant variety that will be a lot hardier. There are some cottonwoods mixed in, and we're going to fill in the line on the north side of the road coming into the Del Norte open space from the 4th Street side from Miller's Feed.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah.
Hope you can come out.
Okay, trustee Radnovich, your turn.
Let's see, this is on your report, Mayor?
Yes.
I mentioned last week that, bless you, whoever that was. Oh, sorry. Thanks. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I mentioned last month that I had asked someone in the environmental community to estimate how much it would cost to do a cultural and archaeological study, as well as actually underground tanks for Hartnett Park and the land that the Village Hall sits on. And I wanted to mention that she gave me a price of around $8,000. So,
Okay.
so if that's an average, or if it's low or a little high, I don't think it would cost too much to do something like that before we
happen
do
to agree with
anything
you.
else.
I happen to agree with you. That's a great comment. Go ahead.
And that was from Ecosphere,
Yes,
Jerusha Rawlings over there.
thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see, Ann. I had nothing for you, Ann, but good report. Josh, I had a couple of things for you. Now, what kind of grapes did you use for the wine?
Mayor, trustees, we have Boca Noir and Rougeon grapes at the Agri-Nature Center.
Nice. Rougeon.
Rougeon.
That
They're both
red or-
French-American hybrids.
Red?
Red, yeah.
Nice. The lecture series, I also wanted to commend you on that. It's great that you got involved in that, and that Wes asked you to be over there, and it just adds to the community of the Agri-Nature Center in Los Poblanos, and I think it's awesome. And I also wanted to commend you on the Ag Center, speaking with local brewers and selling hops to them. I think that's really a great thing, and keep up that good work too. I noticed you went to NMSU Farmington Research Station. Can you talk a little bit more about what happened up there?
Sure. Mayor, trustees, Trustee Radnovich, yeah, they had their annual field day up at NMSU Farmington, and I was invited by the director there, Dr. Kevin Lombard, and because we've been working together on our hops trials, he's the one who helped us get started with hops originally, and he put us in touch with North Carolina State, who's helping breeding hops for the southern environments, so with regard to day periodism. So we've been in touch a lot regarding hops trials, and now also with grain trials. They're working a lot with Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance, as well as Native Seed Search and the Land Institute in Kansas, doing grain trials with Kernza and perennial grains and those kind of things. And so we've started doing some grain trials as well over the past few years with the Rio Grande Grain Collective. And so just looking at equipment and what we're able to do at scale, those are conversations that we've had with him. So we looked at their grain trials, we looked at their hops trials. They also have a lot of other trials going on there as well. So it was interesting to talk with a lot of the extension agents who were there, a lot of the research professors, and kind of look at what at the research that they're doing in Farmington, which it's interesting because the stuff that we're able to grow here, they said they're a few years out and it's moving north. So things are changing quickly as things are getting warmer.
Nice. I have a lot of hope for Kernza. I think Kernza's we're going to be planting a bunch of it down at the biopark.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
So I think that's going to be a crop that we can really concentrate on in the future.
If we can breed a Hollis variety, that would be amazing for processing.
No doubt, no doubt. I think that's all I had for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job on everything, though. Maria, I already asked you questions. Oh, I did want to ask you one other question, Maria. Why is it a mud bath out at the road into the Agri-Nature Center? Didn't they grade? I thought I knew it was dirt, but I thought they were going to grade it.
Mayor, Trustee Radovich, it was graded.
Oh.
It was graded for, it was lined and graded, but there's no curb, no hard edge to control the flows.
I see.
So, yeah,
I see.
it's just not draining properly.
I
It's
see.
not draining at all.
Oh,
There was the
and it
the
was
amount-
graded correctly.
It was graded correctly.
That's odd. I appreciated your scope of work too. Thank you for providing us that. I was curious about the crosswalk, Fred, at the crosswalk at the Osuna Shopping Center. You said there were some traffic issues with the crosswalk.
Mayor, trustees, Trustee Radovich, actually at the last Board of Trustees meeting, a resident approached me about a concern there on that crosswalk between the shopping center and the little island of businesses.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're looking at that, and actually, it's 15 miles an hour there through that part. It's a little bit of a raised crosswalk, but not really. So we were looking at that, and we were considering maybe even putting some speed humps right before both of those.
Oh.
Since it's 15 miles an hour. Again, there's a lot of traffic, a lot of pedestrian traffic in between there. And so we're going to look at that and see if it warrants that.
Wow. Okay. Thanks. That was the only question I had. I think that's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, very good. We're going to go to financial business now. Discussion and approval of the August 2023 cash report. Do we have CFO Tammy Silva on Zoom?
Yes, Mayor, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Before we get to discussion from the governing body on the cash report, I need a motion to approve the August cash report.
I'll make a motion to approve the August cash report.
I need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, we're going to go trustee by trustee if there's any questions. The floor is closed for comments, but let's go for trustee by trustee. Trustee Pacheco, any questions on the cash report?
I noticed, Tammy, on the statement of revenues and expenditures, under the original budget and the revised budget for 2023 and 2024, down at the other financing sources, can you just explain to me what those numbers are reflecting and why they're negative? I'm assuming they're being transferred in and out of something, but can you explain that a little bit more?
Yes, Mayor, Trustee Pacheco. So the other financing sources and uses, that is an accounting term. And what that is, what is in there is transfers in and out. So you'll see a negative and a positive because we're normally transferring from one account into another fund, from one fund to another. And so you'll see both a positive and a negative. At the end of the year, those will completely balance out to exactly the same number, one positive, one negative. And the reason why these are separate like this is because we do fund accounting and each fund is essentially its own balance sheet, it looks like we are receiving revenue, but it's not actual revenue. That money is already accounted for in one fund and it is moving into another fund. So it's not put up into the area above where we see revenue, because that would essentially make it look like we are getting more revenue than we actually are. So that's accounted for down below so that we can see it's kind of an internal thing.
Okay, that's what I thought. Just thought I would get that cleared up. Now moving to the check register. Let's see. Got a couple answered already. There is a check for P&M for Osuna Road. Can you explain what that is paid for?
Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, so that actually, the 3819 Osuna Road is actually one of the bills. So that was an error on my part. Normally I put in there that it's the monthly charges for PNM. So we get anywhere between, I believe it's 25 to 30 different bills. And when I put it into this report, I usually sum it up so you don't see every single address separately. So that was just an error in my part. The $4,424 is for all of the bills total. And I just didn't remove that one address. So that was my mistake. Sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you for that explanation. I think, Mayor, that is all I have.
Before I move to Trustee Benavides, Tammy, I forgot to let you describe the cash report. Why don't you go ahead and give us a description?
Sure, Mayor, Trustee. So for the August 31st, 2023 cash report, we have an ending cash balance of $12,701,413.65. This is an increase of $97,365.59 for the month, and a total year-to-date excess of revenue over expenditures of $462,872.19. And listed below are several of the unusual or significant items that happened during this month. As you can see, during this month, we had 6 different payments or 7 different payments that are pretty sizely. Many of those are one-time fees, which included our bond principal and interest payment. So those 7 payments there are accounting for more than $400,000, and we still had an increase of $97,000 for the month.
Thank you, Tammy. Okay, now we'll move on to Trustee Benavides. Any questions from the cash report?
Yes, let's see, page 37. So the village reimbursed Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office $10,856 for June. Remind me how often, how many times have we done this so far? How many months?
So Mayor, Trustee Benavides, we have actually, so for fiscal year 23, they asked for 3 reimbursements of overtime expenditures for sheriffs, April through June. That's part of our MOU with the Sheriff's Office is that we will cover up to $25,000 in fiscal year 23 in those expenses. So in fiscal year 23, we reimbursed them for overtime 3 times. That $10,000 though also includes LEPF expenditures, and those come through from the state. From that check, let me see here. I believe I have a breakout of which is which, but I know that, let's see here. From that check, only $918 was for overtime cost for June, and $9,900 was actually from LEPF expenditures. So the majority of that check is for LEPF, which we don't pay. We get that passed through from the state.
Okay, so I was thinking about what we had talked about with Fred in regards to sending more money over to the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office for more overtime pay so that we can have more police presence in the village. So that is not what that money's for. I don't know, maybe, do you mind, Fred?
No, there is 25,000. Go ahead, Fred.
I don't know.
Explain it.
Mayor, trustees, Trustee Benavides, a little bit of that, the $900 was the supplement that I provided you for tonight's meeting, where they did what we call a directed patrol on August the 31st, where they had 4 deputies and a sergeant working traffic and then conducting business welfare checks with 25 businesses along 4th Street. That is what we're going to use that money for.
Okay, it seems to me like I've seen more of a patrolling in the village as of, recently.
There has been.
Yes, Mayor and Trustee Bennett, and there's, the report that I gave you only included one of the directed patrols. The captain has two more that he's going to send me on the data from that.
Okay. All right, so, but this check for 10,856 is more than just that. Okay.
I think like Tammy said, Mayor, Trustees, Benavides, the $900 was overtime, but the rest of the money is the Law Enforcement Protection Fund money that we get from the state, and then it's just for equipment, law enforcement equipment, and I think this year it went to, correct me if I'm wrong, Tammy, 90,000 for law enforcement protection, and so that can be used for vehicles and other law enforcement equipment for the county.
Mayor, trustees, may I also add, so LEPF went up for fiscal year 24 to $95,000, and our MOU with BCSO went from $25,000 to $50,000. So we did account for more money to be spent there if necessary for overtime and what the sheriff is conducting.
Well, thank you. I think that's a great use of the money, so thanks. That's all I have.
Okay, Trustee Radnovich.
I only had one question on the whole cash report, and it's kind of a small one. What is the Minolta Konica rental?
It's our printer. It's our big printer.
Oh,
we have a huge
Yes,
printer back
Mayor
there.
Trustee Radnovich, that is our printer, and we pay for the rental of that printer $452 a month. And then associated with that is the DocuSolutions check that you'll see every month for any overage of copies that we have. We have a certain allotted amount, and if we go over that, we pay a small fee.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call for the question. Call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Item B, discussion and approval of resolution number 2023-09-01. A resolution approving a budget adjustment request FY 2023-2024, recommending budget revisions related to the Capital Infrastructure Fund. CFO Tammy Silva.
Mayor, trustees, before you is the budget adjustment request 2023-09-01. This budget adjustment request is for the Capital Infrastructure Fund, Fund 311, and for Department 3139. This is a new department. This bar is to put in the budget the capital appropriation that we received from the state for $525,000 to acquire open space. This was not in our final budget because we did not have the signed agreement from the state. We didn't have an agreement until August. Now that we have it and we know we have this money coming to us, this is to add both the revenue and the expense line items to our budget to be in compliance with state statutes.
Thank you, Tammy. The mayor just stepped away momentarily. I'm going to need a motion to approve resolution 2023-09-01.
I'll second that.
I need the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Motion, let's see, let me get back here. Motion to approve resolution 2023-09-01.
And I need a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Okay, is there any discussion from the governing board with regard to this item?
I have none.
None? Thank you. Okay, the floor is now closed for comments. I'm going to go ahead and call for the question and call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco, yes. Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich?
Yes.
The motion carries. We'll go ahead and move on to section C, discussion and approval of resolution number 2023-09-02, a resolution approving a budget adjustment request FY 2023-2024, revisions related to the American Rescue Act Fund. CFO Tammy Silva.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, trustees. So before you is the budget adjustment request 2023-09-02 for the American Rescue Plan Act Fund. This is Fund 260. What we are requesting in this budget adjustment is to add expenditures for 3 different line items. These 3 line items were all items that were budgeted for in fiscal year 23, and we were unable to complete them by June 30th. And so all 3 of these items were items that were in the Rescue Act lists that you were provided. The first is for the Paseo del Norte infrastructure project, the $350,000. This was originally budgeted in fiscal year 23, and we were unable to complete it. So now we are moving forward with that. The second item for $22,800 is for the technology improvements for Village Hall in case of emergencies and needing to operate for any kind of emergencies that could happen in the village. That was also something that we weren't able to complete in the past year, and in fact, the past 2 years due to supply shortage, and now we are able to continue forward with that. And the third item on here is $40,000 for the Chavez Road raised crosswalks. Again, this was something we had anticipated finishing at June 30th, 2023. And due to just the timing of contractors and not being able to get this done as soon as we would have liked, we are now just moving this over to the fiscal 24 budget.
Thank you, Tammy. Before I get to discussion from the governing body, I need a motion to approve resolution number 2023-0902.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-09-02.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to questions from the governing body, if any. Trustee Pacheco.
I have none.
Trustee Benavides.
I have none.
Trustee Radnovich.
I have none.
Okay, floor is now closed for comments. I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Item D, discussion and approval of resolution number 2023-09-03, a resolution approving a budget adjustment request fiscal year 2023-2024, revisions related to the Fire Protection Fund. CFO Tammy Silva.
Thank you, Mayor and trustees. Before you, the budget adjustment request 2023-09-03 is for our Fire Protection Fund, Fund 209. What this budget adjustment is requesting is to increase the budget we originally had for this revenue and expense by $10,505. The reason for this adjustment is we do not know what our allotment is going to be prior to July 1st. We received our letter in August as to the exact amount that the state will be providing to us, and it was $10,505 more than the prior year. So this budget adjustment is to increase it, to revise the budget to the exact amount we will be receiving this year that we will pass on to the county. So we have both the revenue being increased and the expense being increased by the exact same amount to be in compliance with our budget state statutes.
Thank you, Tammy. Before I get to discussion from the governing body, I need a motion to approve resolution number 2023-09-03.
I'll make a motion. I'd like to motion that we approve resolution 2023-09-03.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, let me get to discussion from the governing body, trustee by trustee. Trustee Pacheco.
I have none.
Trustee Benavides.
I have none.
Trustee Radnovich.
None.
Floor is now closed for comments. I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Item E, discussion and approval of resolution number 2023-09-04, a resolution approving a budget adjustment request fiscal year 2023-2024, revisions related to the Special Revenue Fund. CFO Tammy Silva.
Mayor, trustees, before you is the budget adjustment request 2023-09-04 for the Special Revenue Fund, Fund 299 for the Agri-Nature Center Department, which is Department 3003. This budget adjustment request is to budget for a new grant that Josh applied for and received. He got word that we received this grant. It is a specialty crop block grant that we are going to be receiving in the amount of $27,500. We did not know we would receive this grant until he got word about 2 weeks ago. So this budget adjustment is adding both the revenue of $27,500 and the expense to go ahead and expend those funds all within this year. And yeah, I stand for any questions on that one.
Okay, before I get to discussion from the governing body, I need a motion to approve resolution number 2023-09-04.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-09-04.
I need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, let me go trustee by trustee for any possible discussion. Trustee Pacheco.
None.
Trustee Benavides.
I have none.
Trustee Radnovich.
None.
Floor is now closed for comments. I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Now we move to item 10, public hearings. A, discussion and approval to advertise ordinance number 297, an ordinance revising Chapter 2 of the Codified Ordinances, amending Sections 5 and 6 pertaining to the compensation of the mayor and trustees. Administrator Simon.
Mayor, trustees, thank you. Before you is an ordinance for consideration, discussion, and advertisement, thank you, to consider the payment for the mayor and increase the payment for the mayor and the trustees. After consideration of other communities in the state of New Mexico, peer communities such as the village of Los Ranchos, and considering the increase by the state of New Mexico for state employees to $15 an hour, we have laid out the proposal in front of you, which is a $15 an hour minimum for the mayor, bringing his or her wage to $32,000, and the trustees at $200 a meeting, up from $50, with a $50 for any additional meeting, such as a special meeting or a continuation of a meeting. We talked about this during the budget workshop in April. We presented it in the interim budget, and then you passed this amount in the final budget. So we have budgeted for this increase. The mayor's pay was set at a minimum wage. I believe it was 20 years ago. Mayor, you can...
December 2003.
When the minimum wage was $5. The mayor's salary is based on a 40-hour salary. The mayor may not be in the office or present or at a desk for 40 hours, but the mayor continues to be the mayor 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So we are proposing the amounts in front of you. This is a discussion-only advertisement item before you tonight, and I stand for questions.
Thank you, Administrator Simon. Before I move to questions and discussion from the governing body, trustee by trustee, I need a motion to approve the advertisement of ordinance number 297.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the advertisement of ordinance 297.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, let me go trustee by trustee. Trustee Pacheco.
Anne, thank you, Mayor. I know we discussed this at length some months ago, and
January of 2022.
That was some months
That was
ago,
a long time
for
ago.
sure. And I know at that time we had made a decision as a governing board not to move that forward. We all know that The mayor's job is obviously an extremely important one, on call 24/7, as well as the trustees. You know, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes also with the trustees in terms of packets and, you know, other meetings that need to be attended. So I think that now that we've had some time to marinate, I think, on this subject, and of course, this does not go into effect for any of us sitting on this board currently, right? This will go into effect for the next election, after the next election.
Mayor, trustees, that is correct. Anybody who is currently sitting and not up for reelection, this does not apply. This applies to any new officers that are sworn in January 1.
Thank you. I just wanted to make those comments. Thank you.
Trustee Benavides.
Well, for clarification, you said it applies only to new officers sworn in. How about officers that are appointed? Does it apply to them?
No.
It's not clear,
You want to
though.
comment on that, Attorney Nan Winter? If they're appointed after January 1, the answer would be yes.
Mayor, trustees, we're going to let Attorney Winter answer that because I'm not sure if I know the answer to that.
Mayor, trustees, this is grounded in the New Mexico Constitution, and it's tied to term. So the question, I need a little clarification. Are you asking whether or not somebody appointed now who would also be seated in January, or are you asking for somebody who would be appointed after January?
Well, yeah, so I think you bring up a good scenario. I mean, there are, of the 4 trustees, there are 2 positions that continue into the next year after January, and then there are two newly elected. So of those 2 scenarios, something could happen whereby somebody steps down or something like that, and there'll be a need for an appointment. So given those 2 scenarios, and let's say this happens in January, what happens to them? I'm not advocating anything. I just I think it ought to be clear as to what happens.
Mayor, trustees,
what the compensation is.
Mayor, trustees, without looking at it further, let me give you my best read of that constitutional provision. So there are 2 seats that will not be affected by this pay raise. You 2 gentlemen. So let's say that for whatever reason, there's an appointment made to one of your 2 seats come January. I think the person that fills that seat is filling your term, which means that if it's tied to the term, that person would not get the proposed raise. Let me confirm that, though. There is some case law on this. There's been a lot of research on it because, as you may know, the governor and the attorney general will be getting pay raises in 2027. So there was some research done on this recently. But my read of the Constitution, Mayor, trustees, again, is that it's tied to the term, it's tied to the position, therefore these 2 positions will not get it. However, this seat and these 2 seats likely will. Okay?
Okay. So I think you agree that we should have some clarification about that in this, right?
Mayor, trustee, I will confirm that and drop you all a note. It's probably something you want to know before the next board meeting, but I'll let you know.
And we're only advertising.
And you're only advertising, correct?
Only advertising.
And the other, let me just make one final comment. You know, I think there's been a lot of discussion as to what sort of compensation the trustees and the mayor should receive, and it ranged quite a bit. There were some very high numbers suggested. I think there should be an element of service, and meaning that the pay is not really representative of how much work a person needs to put into this job, but I'm okay with that because I think there does need to be an element of service in there.
Well, my position there is that this would be the minimum wage.
Yeah.
It's the minimum, so I mean, it was the minimum 20 years ago. So that's basically what it is. Any further comments?
That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, Trustee Radnovich.
I actually did quite a bit of research on this just because I knew that this was coming up. And I think from looking at other villages, towns, cities in New Mexico, this is kind of an average. I mean, there are some really small places that have salaries that are really high. And there are some fairly large cities in New Mexico that have salaries that are less than this for the mayor and trustees and councilors. So I feel comfortable with this level for mayor and for trustees, and I don't have any other questions other than that. I just wanted to say that.
Okay. At this point, it's time to let individuals who signed up prior to this to state your name and address. I think we have one person. Is this Joe Craig? Joe, was this you or is it somebody else? I can't read the name on this. Somebody signed this. It could be you. It kind of looks like you. So please come forward. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor.
State your name and address.
Joe Craig, 505 Calle del Pajarito. Thank you, Mayor, trustees. I think this is very important. I would like to add a comment. It was by David Montoya, and he was asking why we didn't have more younger people involved in our village. And I said, get your daughters. And he said, they're busy. They're taking care of their kids. They're taking care of their parents. They're taking care of a lot of things. We need to compensate our trustees, and I would urge even higher than what this is looking at. The mayor's compensation sounds good. This is a demanding job. It has gone up dramatically in the last 6 years. And not only do you need to be compensated, but we need to be able to draw people into our village, into the administration. And there's a reason for it. Thank you.
You're welcome. The floor is now closed for comments. I am going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco.
Remind me, are we?
Advertise.
We're advertising, okay.
Advertise.
I will, and did we make
Yes.
the motion? Yes, okay.
Yes.
So yes. Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
So just for clarification, I think I asked for more clarification in regards to appointees. So I am voting to advertise with that additional clarification.
Of course,
Okay.
of course.
So my vote is yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously. Old business. Discussion only. The issuance and sale of the Village of Los Ranchos to Albuquerque, New Mexico taxable industrial revenue bonds. Administrator Simon.
All right, thank you, Mayor and trustees. I'm going to be Maria for a moment. And Kiko, if you could help me get my PowerPoint up here. Well, thank you so much. I wanted to take this opportunity to talk, and hopefully Chris Muirhead is here. He is. Oh, great. Come on up here, Chris, because I'm going to probably call on you. Yes, I wanted to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about what an industrial revenue bond is, why it's different from a general obligation bond, how these come to our attention, what the process and timeline is, and why it's good for the Village of Los Ranchos. So, on the first slide, we have what is an IRB versus a general obligation bond. So IRBs, industrial revenue bonds, are a type of municipal bond issued by a state or local government on behalf of a private company for a specific
project, or purpose. The IRB is a tool intended to offset the tax burden on private sector equipment or property. IRBs are not a debt to the village. This is very important, but rather an economic development tool. There's no payment owed by the municipality on the IRB. The company, which is a beneficiary, fully indemnifies the community for anything related to the project, so there's no risk to the village. As part of the business transaction, the company will pay a PILT, we call it sometimes, or a pilot, which is the payment in lieu of taxes, to the village as part of a negotiated agreement. And this can be specified for a specific purpose, and I can get into that. But as a comparison, the general obligation bond is a debt of the village approved by the voters for a specific purpose, like the purchase we're going to make on Friday for the Anderson property. And that is a 20-year obligation by the village. It's a debt. So, next slide, please. How did this IRB come to pass? So the decision to ask a municipality for tax deferment via an IRB belongs first to the company, not to us. It's a business decision based on a number of factors. If the IRB makes sense, the company will approach a municipality to see if this deal makes sense for the company. In the case of V Hills, we were first approached in March of this year. Now, when Trustee Benavides last month asked me how long we had been working with the company, I said a year. I went back on my emails. It was actually March. And in June, the company decided to move forward. So they made the request to the village, and the mayor and I talked about it. We did our due diligence, and then between March and August, we vetted the company. We met with the CEO several times, Mark Lemony. We developed a timeline for the IRB. We engaged our bond counsel, and we agreed to move forward with the request and bring it to the trustees' attention. And I give you this timeline because I think there was a comment that this was sprung upon us, when in fact, what we were doing behind the scenes is our due diligence. So it was a perfectly appropriate timeline. In August, as you know, last month, we brought before you, we brought you into the process, the trustees, to answer questions about the company, negotiate this PILT, this payment in lieu of taxes, and decide if a tax abatement makes sense and if it meets the appetite of you, the trustees, and the community. Okay, next slide. Almost done. So, who is V Hills Beef Jerky? Mark Lemony, the CEO, is here tonight, and I'm sure he'd be willing to answer questions, as he did last month. But V Hills Beef Jerky is a local company founded in 2000 in Algodones, New Mexico. It's found all over the state of New Mexico. In fact, our bond counsel found them up in Cimarron in a convenience store. It's very yummy. Hopefully you got to try some samples last month. It'll bring 30 jobs to the village of Los Ranchos. It's a clean company. It's not a cannabis or alcohol or filling station. The odors that might emanate are spices. Green chili happens to be the state odor right now. And we want to help them be successful. So this is a way that we can assist this company be successful in this highly visible part of the village. The property's been sitting vacant for many years. It's a great way to re-energize this particular property. And
the village has received no tax benefit from the church next door, who also vetted the company and agreed to sell the land to V Hills. And the last thing is, when you buy V Hills, made in the village of Los Ranchos, it will say very clearly manufactured in Los Ranchos, which is just another way to bring attention to our wonderful village. I stand for questions. I also have Chris Muirhead here, who can talk specifically about what payment in lieu of taxes is, how these things are structured differently than GO bonds. But I leave it to you.
Thank you, Administrator Simon. There is no vote on this item, so we will start with discussion and questions from the governing body. Let me start with Trustee Pacheco.
Thank you, Mayor. And the way I see this is kind of an incentive for businesses to come to the village of Los Ranchos, to come do business, to bring employees, to create a revenue stream, and of course, to increase GRT. This is something that we've talked about, I know, for years while I've been a trustee, in terms of creating economic development in our community. I heard today a resident talk about local and keeping it local and doing business with locals, and amen to that. I feel like V Hills is a local company that has a strong reputation, and I think they would fit perfectly within our community. I think it's everything that we've talked about as a business development committee of what we are looking for the village of Los Ranchos. Now, you also mentioned that we can use what the village gets for we can assign it to a certain area. And I know in your presentation you had talked, and I know we as a board had made a decision to put a space acquisition fund together that we've been, I think, pretty successful at using. So this could be something that could be targeted toward that fund. Is that right?
Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, yes, absolutely. Any funds that come directly back to the village from this company can be allocated to a specific fund source, and land acquisition is a perfect place.
Okay, great. I think that's all the comments or questions that I had. Thank you.
All right, Trustee Benavides.
So I've been at this job for almost 2 years, and I did not know what an IRB was until this came up. And the way, when it was presented to us, it sounded very complicated. So I'd asked for a guide called IRBs for Dummies, and I think that's what you gave us here. So thank you. And I do understand it much better. And that was my big hang up in the beginning, and I was hoping we would have had a heads up about that. It would have smoothed that learning curve and got me to where I am today much faster. I don't have a problem with this. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Radnovich.
I don't have any questions at all of anyone. I do have a comment. I saw the site plan. Thank you, Ann, for sending that to me. It really looks like it's going to be a sea of asphalt out there if that dirt lot is going to be paved. And those small walls aren't going to do a whole lot to buffer it. That's a very big parking lot, and I think it needs more landscaping. It's at the front of the village. It's at a gateway to the village, and I just think it needs to be softer than that entire parking lot that I saw on that site plan. So I would request that the landscaping be increased within that parking lot to buffer it and to buffer the 18-wheelers that will come there. I understand how often they'll be there, but I think it really needs more than what that site plan shows. That's my only comment.
Okay. And Ann, I presume that you can discuss this with the owner? and just in
Yes,
case-
Mayor, trustees, yes, we are still in negotiation on the payment in lieu of taxes, and we can certainly negotiate based on some of trustee Radnovich's concerns.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. We're going to move to item 12, which is now new business. 12A is discussion and approval of resolution number 2023-09-05, a resolution of support and commitment to seek funding from the Water Trust Board of the State of New Mexico. I'm the one who's going to present this. This is a request and for a commitment from the Board of Trustees. In essence, the State of New Mexico has well over $100 million in water resource funding that is passed through to communities for water projects. As all of you know, the levees that protect the village of Los Ranchos are 70-plus years old. The earth fill of those levees, and I happen to know this personally, are filled with roots, rodent holes, and a flood exceeding 10,000 cubic CFS, which is really only 25% of the design capacity of the river through that area, could potentially cause a breach of the levees, which would flood most of the village of Los Ranchos. And that flooding would go all the way to downtown Albuquerque, and it would be a bad, extremely bad situation for everybody. So at my direction, we have obtained a $467,000 grant from FEMA, and we're getting support from Bernalillo County and the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District on that particular item. But I felt that it was important for us to take advantage and apply for funding from the Water Trust Board to help us move the project forward in the planning, design, and construction of certain of the elements. We have Chuck Thomas, who was the chief engineer of SCAFCA, who is really an expert in flood control, levees, dams, pipeline, as I am. And so the purpose of this is to get an approved resolution so that he and I can finish the application and get it submitted in a timely manner. And so with that, before I get to discussion from the governing body, I do need a motion to approve resolution number 2023-09-05.
I move to approve resolution 2023 sorry, I got past that date,
09-05?
-09-05. Thank you, Mayor.
I need a second.
Sure, I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion from the governing body? And I'll go trustee by trustee. Trustee Pacheco.
Mayor, I just want to say thank you for bringing this to us to vote on. This is important. I mean, the acequias are a big element in our village, and we definitely need to take care of them so they take care of us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Trustee Benavides.
So just looking at the resolution, you're requesting financial assistance in the amount of $4.5 million, right?
Correct.
Is that enough? How'd you get that estimate?
Well, Chuck Thomas is working directly for New Mexico Municipal League in preparing the application, and he received guidance from them that was an appropriate number to apply for at this time, which doesn't mean we can't apply next year and even the year after that. Because this project may cost in the tens of millions of dollars. And if the federal government doesn't step up and provide some of that money, and there's a bureaucracy involved in that, the village and the local stakeholders like Middle Rio Grande Conservancy, Bernalillo County, we may have to do this ourselves. That may be what happens at the end of the day. That's the answer to the question.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Trustee Radnovich.
You just answered one of my questions, Mayor. Thank you. I did have another, though, or two. Why couldn't wildfire public safety be a yes in the declaration of project urgency?
Don't know. Chuck Thomas and I are working on the application as we speak. And so I will ask him that question. He may have the answer to that question. We have to put our total response together by Friday.
Oh, wow.
So I want this approved tonight so that I can move forward and finish the application with him.
Okay.
working With him.
That makes sense.
Okay.
And I have one other as
Sure.
well. It seems to me that the last question on page 74 that we didn't check, regulatory compliance checklist, and the one specifically for water conservation plan and drought management plan.
Sure.
Could also be checked, because we do a lot for water conservation as a village.
I happen
and-
to agree with you on that. I think we'll go ahead and check it before we send it in. I do agree with that.
Great. And then, I noticed the date was for July 31st. That's because you did it prior to this meeting?
Yes, but we have to turn the application in by Friday.
Got it.
So we have the
So
opportunity.
that date will change?
Well, probably.
Okay. That's all I had.
Okay.
Thank you.
Danielle, did anybody sign up to speak on this? Okay, no one signed up. Therefore, the floor is closed for comments. I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco?
Yes.
Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. B, discussion and approval resolution number 2023-09-06, a resolution accepting the approval of a celebration permit. Administrator Simon.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. This is before you is a resolution allowing alcohol to be served at the Agri-Nature Center. Again, we are trying to encourage more activities down at the Agri-Nature Center, and this is for our fall festival. And I'm just trying to find a date for the festival. It is October 21st, and we will be having 2 of the vendors, but we haven't gotten confirmation, so we have all 3. We're requesting permission to allow all 3 of them to serve alcohol: Kelly Joe, Designed by Wine, Steel Bender Brewery, and Hops Brewery. I stand for questions.
Thank you. Before we get to discussion from the governing body, trustee by trustee, I need a motion to approve resolution number 2023-09-06.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-0905-05.
06.
Okay, maybe
05.
it's 05 on mine.
Is that right?
Yep.
Mine says 6.
Says,
It's wrong.
It's a
Oh,
typo.
yeah,
Yes,
it's different. What is
Mayor, it
Danielle?
is.
Is it 06?
It should be 06.
It's 6.
Okay, so let me go back. I am making a motion to approve resolution number 2023-09-06.
Thank you. I need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, trustee by trustee discussion. Trustee Pacheco?
None.
Trustee Benavides?
I have none.
Trustee Radnovich?
None.
Thank you. Did anybody sign up to speak on this? No. Okay, the floor is now closed for comments. Call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Pacheco?
Yes.
Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. We are now at trustee informal discussion. Roundtable discussion is informal. Board of Trustees will take no action, vote, or other action. Trustee Pacheco?
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple of things. First of all, we heard that trustee Alan Lewis has left our board, and I just wanted it on the record. I'm now the veteran trustee on this board. It's amazing to me that has happened. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about Alan. Alan was and is a mentor to me. I mean, he really pushed along my service on this board and really just kind of guided me through it all, especially early on. The mayor and I were talking about that. I mean, as a new trustee, you don't know what you don't know, number one, and there is a lot to know. And Alan Lewis, just kind of guided me through that. So I just wanted to mention that, he brought great perspective with regard to the village. I mean, he is a longstanding, well, I think he's lived here forever, knows a lot. He brought a business perspective to this board that I really appreciated. I'm going to miss him terribly. He was a great colleague, and I truly appreciate everything that he brought to this board, and I just wanted to wish him the best wherever he goes. Now, I have one more thing, Mayor.
Sure.
So I was listening to Joshua speak a little bit about kind of the programming that he's doing and the involvement of some of our community members. And I just started to think, and I don't know that we have ever done this, and maybe past administrations, maybe even something that I'm not aware of, but have we ever done a citizen recognition award? I think this, hearing what Joshua said, talking about some of the residents in this community, talk about going above and beyond being just a resident. They are, they have, it sounds like, given blood, sweat, and tears to volunteering in this community. And I would just like to suggest that maybe we consider an award like that, whether it be once a year or once a quarter. I don't know what that looks like, but I think that would be something that would really be positive for the community.
That idea has a lot of merit. I cannot tell you in the 30 years I've been here whether that's ever happened. I just can't remember. But any further comments?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Trustee Benavides.
I think that's a wonderful idea to have a citizens award, yeah.
And about Trustee Alan Lewis, I agree with what you said. He was a man that had convictions, and he was a gentleman to all of us, whether we agreed with him or not. So, and I do want to reiterate the importance of citizens paying attention to the ordinances that we have, and this is the beauty of the Citizens Advisory Committee, because they've and I hope people pay attention to this. But they can look at our ordinances and warn us of things that we might not see coming, because once the ordinance is in place, it's hard to reverse things. I can't stress this enough. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Radnovich.
I don't have much, Mayor. I'm really sad that Trustee Lewis left. I would love to have some kind of and I don't know if we can do this and have all the trustees there, but I would love to have some kind of send-off for him, if we can.
We will do that.
Good. The other thing I wanted to mention is, and I love the idea of a citizen award of some sort too. I don't know what that looks like either. The other thing I wanted to mention is the El Camino Motel. I think we really need to, those and Fred, I'd probably ask you about this. Those signs that they have all over that parking lot just aren't even close to a regulation of any sort. And there must be something we can do to make that look better in the short term until someone decides to do something with it, whether that be the current owner or a future owner. It just seems like
it's shabby. It's shabby.
Yeah, and if we want to bring new business into that part of the village, it's driving that new business away the way it is now.
Sure.
So that's the only other thing I wanted to mention. It's just got to be dealt with.
Okay, before we adjourn, Danielle, our clerk, has an announcement to make. Please go ahead, Danielle.
Thank you, Mayor and trustees. I just wanted to let everyone know that the candidates and the public, that the League of Women Voters of Central New Mexico will be hosting 2 candidate forums on behalf of the village. They've identified 2 dates, and this is what we've come up with: a trustee forum to be held on Monday, October 16th. That will be from 7 to 8:30 p.m. here in the chambers, and the forum will be live streamed on the village website. We'll have a second forum, and this will be for the mayoral candidates, and this one will be held on October 18th, which is a Wednesday. That too will be from 7 to 8:30 here in the chambers as well, and will also be live streamed. The league will be overseeing the forum, including setting the rules, sending out the invitations to all the candidates, and soliciting questions from the public. All questions will be submitted in advance to the league, allowing them to vet them and categorize the questions prior to the night of the forums. I will be advertising the event through various means. However, the village website election page will be the best location for updated information as it becomes available, including where to send the questions for the forum once that email address has been identified and confirmed. So the league is still finalizing details, but I wanted to make sure everyone was well aware of the date so they can schedule and plan accordingly. If any questions comes up, please feel free to contact me directly, and I'll be able to provide as much information as I can as I receive it. Thank you, Mayor and trustees.
Thank you, Danielle. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The meeting for September 13th, 2023 is now adjourned.